What's up, Wisconsin? Welcome back to the Inside Wisconsin Show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Trevor Thomas, John Anderson, J.A.
Yeah.
I'm good with the NFL being over because it is Brewers season, baby. Pitchers and catchers reported. Look at this. Look at. I'm wearing them. I've got the Zubas on. You're half of my wardrobe, J.A. You sent me this. I've got Mizzou journalism. I've got Thank you.
Well, we'll work on your math. I feel like that's 2/3 of your wardrobe, but that's,
we did good.
First off, I think like my little ESPN pop-ups, like I think their Brewers' first game is like the 22nd.
Yeah, February 22nd.
It popped up, boom, February 22nd. So we're dangerously close. The fact that the Zubas fit might be the most amazing thing in the world. Like, I don't know where I got pants that size, who sent them to me.
I don't know either.
Right? I got them at some sort of tent and awning sale, apparently. There's no doubt about that.
They're long enough. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how that is, but I'm glad they're there. I'm glad they fit. But honestly, I need to see a picture of you like filling up your car after you've done the gas rewards at
I just did that this morning.
Foods, and that's when I'll know that like he actually wore them out of the house. Then
I filled up my gas tank on the way here this morning in these Zuba pants and didn't give a shit. Let's go.
Boy, I would love to see the looks that you got after that. So, oh my goodness.
Not gonna lie, I pulled up to Quick Trip and it was one of the very rare times there wasn't completely full cars. There was only a couple, but I did turn some construction workers' heads. That happened.
There you go. Yeah. Well, hopefully you got some whistles, and that would make your day. So.
I don't think so. No catch
calls.
But
we do still, post Super Bowl, we still have a little, that lingers for a while. And we're more intently focused on the draft than we would be in other years because, like, instead of just the Packers 7 or 8 picks we're worried about, we get them all. So we still got a lot of that to come.
And it would be an easy connection to make with the Packers and our guest today, Jason Wilde of Wilde Tausch fame and covered the Packers for the last 30 years. But today's episode is really about him and his story and how it affected his life to cover the Packers 30 years and all the different things that he learned along the way. And yes, some incredible Packer stories too.
Mostly writers are the ones that tell the stories. And while he knows gobs about the Packers, hopefully when you leave here, you know gobs about Jason Wilde, who's really interesting. And then he covers the Packers. So if you're here just to find out where Aaron Rodgers is going to play next or who the Packers might draft, I will save you the disappointment. Hopefully you will not want to move on because Wilde and his story and what he has to say is anything but disappointing.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
He's the Wilde half of Wilde and Tausch. I know, they look similar, not so much. Jason Wilde, back on the Inside Wisconsin Show. Thanks for coming back, man. Good to see you.
I'm just trying to catch up to Wes Hodkowitz. That's all I'm trying to do here.
Wilde and Tausch, 50% of the name, 80% of the talent. That's what I think has the breakdown. I don't know if that's, if that works or not. So, and yet this is your radio fame. And if you do not know, I am fascinated by writers and newspaper writers and anybody always said, like, who did you really like as a kid? Rarely is it anybody that's not a writer, which is, not what you would expect. I want to know why and when Jason Wilde thought, I think sports writing is the career for me.
Wow. I love telling this story. And I had a great parenting moment a couple weeks ago. So Maddie is our 15-year-old. She's a freshman. I'm helping her with her paper on her career. She wants to be a marine biologist, an actual one, as opposed to George Costanza, who posed as one. But Sydney, who will be 14 next month, we went to freshman orientation. She's an 8th grader. And she turns to me as we're discussing careers. The speakers are discussing careers and informs me she wants to be a sports journalist, which was a pretty big deal for me to hear. I'm thinking, Dan Jenkins, Sally Jenkins, Jason Wilde, Sydney Wilde. I love it, right? Kind of a challenging landscape of the journalism realm right now, but I'm not going to stop her from dreaming. But look, I can tell you exactly when it started. I grew up on the south side of Milwaukee. It was a 2-newspaper town. We subscribed both to the Milwaukee Sentinel every morning and the Milwaukee Journal every afternoon. I would read the Milwaukee Sentinel sports section with Bud Lee and Dale Hoffman while I was eating my Fruit Loops before I went to school. And when I got home, I would read the Milwaukee Journal and their sports section before I would even do my homework or go outside and play wiffle ball. I am one of those few lucky people that got to be exactly what he wanted to be when he grew up, right? I mean, so many people, so many kids, you, the professor, know this as well as anyone, John. You know, it's a struggle to figure out what you want to do with your life. And it's a stressor for some. I never had that. I certainly have other stresses in my life, but I got to be exactly who I wanted to be when I was a fourth grader. I will say the one struggle with deciding that was that my birthday is on Saturday, so it's the day after Valentine's Day. And if you were a subscriber to Sports Illustrated back in the 1980s, you know that the swimsuit edition was a regular edition of the magazine. And then there was a section, and the cover obviously, that had the swimsuit portion of the program. And oddly, I started subscribing in fourth grade. It was my Christmas present every year from my parents, along with a football jersey or two from the Sears catalog, Walter Payton, Lynn Dickey. And oddly enough, I would never get my issue the week of my birthday. And I couldn't figure out why. And then in about seventh grade, it dawned on me that my mom was taking the issue and confiscating it because of the contents on the cover and in the section. So as a 12-year-old, I had to negotiate, all right, tear off the cover, tear out the swimsuit section if you must. Can I have the rest of the issue, please? And so that was how I read Sports Illustrated. That was always my dream, was to write for them. I did get to do some long form stuff for The Athletic for a year. Obviously, I've done a lot of writing over the last 30 plus years, but yeah, that's how it all began. And I hope that Sydney finds a landscape, if she actually does follow through on this, that figures out how to make journalism relevant and successful and profitable when she eventually gets onto the market.
So he said, Mom, I need the Lee Montville articles. I'm not here for the pictures.
Walter Ius can take as many pictures as he'd like. I just want to read Gary Smith. Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Oh, by the way, Gary Smith's leads came up in my class today, but we'll move forward.
You know, I will say this, and John, you know, I obviously think the world of you. I see Trevor has the Little League version of the bobblehead behind him.
Oh, yeah.
I am happy to report that I finally tracked down the
Wisconsin
Timber Rattlers one. And then when I informed John that I'd finally found it, which, by the way, he's between Euchre and Harry Carey on this shelf.
There you go.
Pretty high caliber group there in my studio in our basement. But I informed him of that, and he informed me that he just had 3 of them that when they moved, he threw away. So you owe me $25.
I'll try to make good on it for sure.
If it makes you feel any better, Wilde, I bought mine. The one that I have up there, I bought that.
Dude, how did that happen? Didn't you authorize
No.
that thing?
The one that Wilde just showed was the T-Rats one where you're sitting on the desk. This one's one of a kind. Do you have this one, Jason? The Bullfrogs one? He's going to get it right now.
Not only do I have one,
this is ridiculous.
I have a second one in my office at Lambeau, which we're not allowed to get in right now because they're renovating the main locker room. And so they're using the new third locker room for the players for the off-season program. I have one and I don't know where this happened, but I found this at the local Goodwill for $3.99. It was signed by John Anderson across the chest. And I have that one in my office in a very prominent location. So when the tours come through, they can see the bobblehead collection and they can see 14-year-old John Anderson with an autograph.
Oh, you should be
That's
talking about.
outstanding.
Are we supposed to be talking about Jason Wilde?
Brady roast.
We're talking about Jason. I thought we were talking about you and how the difference between reading the AM paper and then the different features that you'd find in, a PM deadline. But okay, we'll just throw all that crap out the window then. Cheap.
Well, Wilde, this seems like an appropriate time to bring this up. I got you a birthday present. Ready? Do you have this?
Oh, I do not
have this. Well, you do now. 25 years, or technically 9, of This Is Sports Center, narrated and hosted by John Anderson. So I was listening to your show, heard that you were interested in this, and I went on eBay and bought it for you before you could. So this is headed your way. Maybe we can get John to sign this one too.
I'm a little disappointed you didn't buy the $1,000 signed script from him and Stuart Scott that I also found on eBay. And my appreciation and affinity for John Anderson clearly knows bounds.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, that actually came in this original 25 books. See, there it is in the back with Kenny and those.
Wow, look at that.
Okay.
I wondered why this was perforated. I didn't quite understand that. But anyway, I got one for you. You're good to go.
Oh, it'll go.
Issued
It'll go
September
nicely with my
7th,
Chichi Rodriguez
2004.
book.
Yeah, put it next to the book.
Oh,
Wilde,
my
you
God.
mentioned it. You've been covering the Packers for a really long time, 30 years on the beat. What does Jason Wilde know today versus what Jason Wilde didn't know on day one? We have lots of time. Go ahead.
Well, my favorite story of what a complete idiot I was on our ride on the media bus to Super Bowl 32 in San Diego and Qualcomm. I like to think of it as Jack Murphy Stadium, which there can't have been many sports writers that they had stadiums named after them. I'm hoping maybe the Timber Rattlers will consider me down the road. But I said, I don't see any way the Packers lose this game. And that stuck with me because I thought, all right, I've learned a lesson now that you never know as much as you think you know. I will say this, and I have an affinity for the young journalists, and I joked about Wes Hodkiewicz, but he's the poster child for this. I love the young, eager beaver journalists that shut up and listen, right, and learn from those around them that have done it for a long time. I was really lucky. Tom Silverstein, Tom Oates, Kent Youngblood, and then Tom Mulhern, who was my biggest mentor and was one of Sydney's godfathers who passed away in 2014. I got to be surrounded by some outstanding beat writers in my first few years that I got to learn from, that I just kept my mouth shut and tried to emulate them. So I learned a lot quickly, but I think the biggest thing is that you have to make sure you are careful not to fall for the banana in the tailpipe of some guys who seem like good guys and aren't. I've fallen for a few over the years. Andre Rison, clearly a changed man when he arrived in 1996. That was one of them. I still fell for it later in my career with Martellus Bennett, who I'd never seen a guy have his quarterback suffer a broken collarbone, and then mysteriously, I would have never thought that was a communicable, transmittable injury. But then it turned out that, oddly enough, Martellus had a shoulder injury suddenly that the team was trying to force him to play through, because that's what Dr. McKenzie is known for, is being not conservative enough with players.
Right.
So to that degree, I don't think that I changed a lot during the 30 years in terms of, how to go about the job. I just got to be around some really, really good people and learn from them. And I hope that I am now paying that forward because I've gotten to mentor some really talented folks who are far more talented than me and that have gone a lot further in their careers than I have already. And I'm just really lucky to get a chance to pay that forward.
So the Super Bowl seems like that's really fun. Packer games on Sunday seem like that's really fun. It's one of the. I'm not trying to blow anybody's myths about it, but you get all this time. You must have the greatest job in the world. You go through that. Tell me when that job is just a job.
Not very often. I'll be honest. Like going back to what I said about getting to be what I wanted to be when I grew up. Like, I didn't have the greatest relationship with my dad. That's something for my therapist, though, if I ever get one, not for you two knuckleheads. But he worked in a factory for 40 years as a welder, and it didn't have air conditioning, so in the summertime it's like 120 degrees in there. I have a good friend, Dr. Dave Margolis, whose literal job is at Children's of Wisconsin to cure childhood cancer. That's one guy who worked his ass off in a thankless job, and one guy that does something extremely important. And then there's me, right? I mean, it does not, like, are there days when maybe Tausch is a little difficult to deal with? Yeah. Are there days when Matt LaFleur and I don't see eye to eye, and maybe we get into an exchange that's not ideal? Sure. Was there the time that Brett Favre and I got into a shouting match in the locker room in 2005? There definitely was. But I really do love what I do, and I'm really lucky to do it. It does not feel like work very often. And I will say this, because, I traveled for home and road, regular season, preseason, postseason, throughout the first 21 years of my time covering the team. I got really lucky that the Packers road games did not continue to be part of my work schedule because of different changes in my job, other than going to Chicago and Minnesota. And it coincided with my girls growing up. So, instead of Paula getting to see all the cool things that they've done in their athletic careers and everything else that they've done, Maddie in the Nutcracker at the Milwaukee Ballet, I don't miss that stuff. And a lot of other beat writers do. I just love the fact that I am covering the team in an era where, while I'd still like to be there to ask questions on road games, I can still cover a game from home. We learned that during COVID. And more importantly, that I get to be there for the stuff that really matters, and I don't have to miss it, and I can still do a pretty darn good job of covering the team.
You can cover the team from home, and it turns out you were able to cover the team before social media as well. What was that change like, being a beat reporter before Twitter, and to how it is now and your love-hate relationship with that app?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Trev. I mean, look, first of all, technology has been great, right? Like, I tell a story. In 1996, I was working for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and I covered the Golden Gloves boxing tournament at an old armory in Racine. And I remember on deadline for the print edition, running down Main Street in Racine, trying to find somewhere to connect my old Radio Shack computer to a phone line to get my story in about this boxing match. And I go into a bar that is completely empty, but it was like out of Goodfellas, like the guys that were there. I don't want to cast any aspersions on what kind of business they were conducting, but I begged them to let me use their phone to connect to send my story, and they were great about it. And now I sit at soccer games and volleyball practices and gymnastics practices, and I can write my Devontae Wyatt story I'm writing today from there, right? So that part of technology has been great. From a social media perspective, it's really difficult for me because I think some really cool stuff has happened because of social media. I don't know what the rules are for word choice here, so if you have to beep this out. I don't like it. I don't want to be a dick to people, and I really don't want people to be a dick to me. And I find that part of social media, that there are so many people that it's just adversarial and being unpleasant, that ruins it for me more than anything. So I would love for us to all just get along, but I understand the era we're in, so that doesn't work that way. I've gotten a lot better with just muting and moving on from trolls and people that just want to be jerks. But it would be nice if it was this utopian view that I had when that first started out. I'm seeing that with Blue Sky right now. Like, I didn't leave Twitter just because I think as a reporter, it's your job to meet people where they are, even if it's a place that you don't love. But I just don't think there's any utopia on social media. You have to try and use it to the best of your ability. But again, like, let's be honest, without it, I wouldn't be on with you guys. Trevor, you wouldn't even know who the hell I am, which maybe, wouldn't be the worst thing for you.
Well, I actually met you in 2000. Let's go there real quick, and then we're going to take a quick break because I know John's got a lot more. I was working with Good Karma. My first job in radio was my sophomore year of high school. I was 16 years old. I met you at the Princeton Club before you were ever on Twitter, so no worries about that.
Well, how good a shape was I in?
I can't see your shape now, so I'm not even going to try to compare. All right, break time. Nice job.
No, we don't have to break. No. We can't break just yet.
Okay,
and that's only because you dropped. Did I shout at Brett Favre in 2005? You can't leave me hanging. I don't know that story. I would like to hear that story. And so the break is arbitrary, right? Like Trevor's like, we can break. No, right? The folks there that are sponsoring the program, we're not interrupting anything. We're going to hear about this story right now.
Okay. Yeah.
So the Packers are playing the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia in 2005. Obviously, a few years after 4th and 26 in Philadelphia. But it's the 2005 season, which was, as Tausch likes to say it, the best 4-12 team in NFL history. They did lose a lot of close games that year. Obviously, Favre is pissed off that Ted Thompson, in his first year as the GM, had drafted his replacement in Aaron Rodgers. We don't know what the future holds. We have no idea that Aaron Rodgers will turn out to be a Hall of Famer as well. Favre is not playing well. He's leading the NFL in interceptions that year with 29. Mike Sherman and Tom Rossley and Darrell Bevell can't really tell him what to do. So they're playing in Philly, and they are in the game. They are down, I think, 4 points late in the game. They get the ball back with about 2 minutes left. They can go, a touchdown goes and wins the game. It's during the T.O. era in Philly. And Favre gets the ball back, with the chance to go win the game, drops back, throws what I believe to have been, while it was a incredible moment, speaking of traveling to road games, to be there for, which was the way he played in Oakland and the way the team rallied around him. And guys like, Wesley Walls, who hadn't done anything all season, has a diving touchdown catch in that magical night after Irv passed away. I think after that, Brett Favre decided that every time I throw a ball up for grabs, my guys are going to come down for it. So they're playing in Philly. He throws this ball up for grabs. It gets intercepted. They're going to lose the game. The Eagles are called for a roughing the passer penalty after the throw. So not only do the Packers retain possession, they get the ball now. They're at midfield, again, with a chance to go win the game. On the very next play, Brett Favre drops back, throws the exact same pass up for grabs down the field, gets intercepted by the exact same guy, and they lose the game. So after the game, again, this is the one thing that I miss about road games, is being there to ask these questions. And I asked Brett about the offense and what they were struggling with. But before I ask him that, I asked specifically, hey, what were you thinking on the interception that you threw not once but twice? And his answer is, I was just trying to make a play. Okay, that's his answer. So then I asked him, Brett, you guys struggled offensively for most of the game. What was, why could you not get anything going? And he goes into this 3-minute soliloquy, which stands in very stark contrast to, I was just trying to make a play, during which he throws their young fullback, Vontae Leach, under the bus for dropping a pass on an early possession. I think it might have been the first possession, because they were playing without William Henderson. And how if he makes that catch, we get rolling offensively and maybe the whole game is different. And I thought, this has got to be some of the worst leadership in one of the most important times to show leadership that I have ever heard. You had the ball with the game on the line where you could have gone and won it, and you threw picks, not once but twice, on the same play, basically. And you're going to throw this rookie fullback under the bus for dropping a pass in the right flat on the opening possession of the game. And so I basically wrote, look, the Packers are lost, and Brett Favre, who's supposed to be their leader, is not leading them the way he needs to lead them. So the following Wednesday, Brett, who, if you remember during that era, would get dressed in a separate locker room using Bob Harlan's locker in the staff locker room. I'm talking to Aaron Rodgers, rookie quarterback Aaron Rodgers. I have a friend, Darren Urban, who was covering the Arizona Cardinals at the time. They had J.J. Arrington as their running back. He had been one of Rodgers' teammates in college. And I'm in the middle of talking to Aaron, and I see Favre come up from my right, and he stands right there, and he interrupts the conversation. He says, I heard you took a shot at me. And I said, yeah, I mean, Brett, I guess if that's the way you want to look at it, yeah, I did. Do you want to talk about it? No, but I ain't ever going to forget it. Okay, fine. So Aaron and I resume our conversation, and this weaselly PR guy goes and gets the story and brings it to Brett so he can read it. Because I asked him, did you read the story? He said, no, I didn't. Okay, so PR guy brings the story. He reads it. Now he's really pissed. So he comes back out, and we get into it. I'm like, look, man, if you want to talk about what I said, that's fine. If you want to have that conversation, I'm more than willing to have it. And, I mean, I raised my voice. He raised his. You know, he pointed out how good he'd been to me through all the years. I'm like, Brett, you guys are sitting at whatever they were at the time, like 3-12. If you want to disagree with me on how I feel like that didn't show leadership, explain to me why you took the approach you did. And he stomped off. It must have been earlier in the season, because I would say for the next month, I did not ask him a question in a press conference. I didn't look at him when I was in the locker room, because I'm a bit of a grudge holder. I don't know if you know that about me. So then after about a month and a half, now they're sitting at like 3-12. And I finally said, Brett, you know, you and I obviously had our issues, but you're sitting where you are in the standings. And I'm just wondering, it just seems to me, I see you yelling at guys on the field, which has never been your thing. Are you just really having a hard time because this is uncharted territory for you? It just feels like you're lost without a GPS or without a map. Mm-hmm. And he gave one of the greatest answers I ever got from him, basically admitting that he just didn't know how to handle losing to this degree because he'd never done it before. And, you know, after that, we were fine again. But I'll never forget that, because I hold, and maybe this is unfair because it's not my job to decide whether you're a good leader or not, but I always thought that's one of the most important things a quarterback does. And, you know, the times that I didn't see eye to eye with Aaron Rodgers, despite a great relationship with him and thinking very highly of him during our time together, the times that I've disagreed with him were when he had questionable approaches to leadership with some of his teammates and the way he would show guys up and that sort of thing. So that's a kind of a hot button issue for me. It was even that way before Favre, but certainly after that very heated exchange, that's always been something that I really value in terms of what a quarterback needs to be able to do.
But Trev, before you cut us off, I think the lesson in there is great. That I think eventually, though, TJ Quinn has said it before, and oddly enough, Skip Bayless, who I know people have a lot of things about Skip. Skip used to say, yes, sometimes I was a provocateur, but I made sure I was in that locker room every day after I wrote something, so that if the guys wanted to take it, I was there and I could answer to them. And TJ Quinn, I can remember we worked, I think at the New Bergen Record or something like that. He's like, because in New York, everybody thinks you're taking shots. He goes, I just made sure I was in there every day so that I could defend what I had to write or defend myself if they started to be cheap shots on them. And I think that eventually, right, you gain some manner of trust from those guys and even grudgingly get their respect if you're there. Also, by the way, if they ever say, did you ever play the game? You know you've won the argument. That's one of my big lessons. Do you ever play in the NFL? No. So, but by telling me that, I've just won the argument.
No, but if you can file a game story on Deadline when Antonio Freeman makes the Monday Night Miracle catch and you wrote one story and now you have to change it completely, let me know if you could do that, and then I'll throw some passes later.
There you go.
The people, the stories, and the patriotism of Wisconsin, that story qualifies, and the rest will as well. We're back in just a second. Jason Wilde on the Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Totally jinxed myself, John. The last time you and I talked about Miller Lite and snow and winter, I was like, well, it hasn't snowed at all here. And then we got 8.2 inches the other day. That was ridiculous. So thanks for sending it north.
By volume. No. Can I just say something that will make you chuckle?
Yes.
There is a snowstorm supposed to be coming here. Some people say 1 to 3 inches. Some have gone as high as 3 to 5. Now, here's the kicker. The governor has put the National Guard on alert.
Stop it. For what? Beer? I hope
potentially 5 inches of snow. Potentially 5 inches of snow.
Do you guys not have shovels and plows?
Can you even make a cooler out of that much snow with your Miller Lite? Because as you know, that I love the snowbank cooler. I'm big on that, especially with my Miller Lite.
Yeah. So during our party, that's funny you say that. Somebody brought a case of Miller Lite, and we did not have room in the cooler for that case of Miller Lite because we had a whole bunch of Miller Lite already. So I said, let's set it outside and somebody please start a timer because those things will freeze. It's that cold here right now, but it didn't. And we gave it a good home, J.A. We gave her a good home.
Again, that's why you put it in the snowbank. It gets cold, but it's insulated enough that it will not, freeze and pop and go over.
I just didn't want it.
Just a little tip. That's why. Put it in the snow, freezes it up. Great, gets it nice and cold, but not so much that it, freezes solid.
And by the way, I appreciate everybody over at our party. When they finished a Miller Lite, they took their little tab off and they put it in the thing to send to Children's Hospital down in Milwaukee. We are sticklers with that. I don't know if you do that and save your tabs, but needless to say, our tab thing is this. It was a giant M&M peanut thing, and we fill it multiple times every year and send it off to Milwaukee.
That's good for you. Anyway. Around here, we use the Ronald McDonald House for our tabs, but that's long as you're making the effort and for a good cause, that's great. So, and by the way, now spring training, as you said, is almost here, and to me, that's really Miller Lite season for me. Baseball is my Miller Lite season.
Yeah, I really don't have. I mean, I'll drink it during baseball, but
yeah, you have kind of a 12-month season, which is good. I like a guy who can play in any conditions. It's good for you. That kind of versatility serves you well.
Thanks. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/InsideWisconsin to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Go Brewers. Let's go. Golly, that's great. Time for another top 5 list here on the Inside Wisconsin Show, presented by our friends at UW-Platteville. Discover excellence at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. Their renowned engineering and STEM programs offer a cutting-edge environment with over 60 majors to choose from. And with exciting clubs and organizations, there's always fun happening on campus. Discover why UW-Platteville is a smart investment. Apply now. uwplatt.edu. Top 5 list time. As we did last time, we talked a little bit about what could be some top 5 ideas, and I wrote down top 5 sports movies. We'll do that one next. Maybe the top 5 Super Bowl national anthems. I thought he did a great job on the piano, by the way. Mm-hmm. John Batiste, right?
Yeah. Have you ever watched much of his stuff?
Oh, yeah. I'm a big piano music guy. Love that. And he is phenomenal.
He does a little thing. Where did I see it? He was talking to, was it 60 Minutes? And he just played a little Beethoven, right? Classically. And then he said, but you can make it sound jazzy. And then he played the same thing. Like, he goes, or you can make it feel gospel-y. And it was just, he was remarkable.
Blows my mind. He was incredible. And it was The Under, by the way. Top
Yep.
5 Super Bowl halftime shows, though, is where we landed. And I challenged John that I highly doubt we have a single one that's the same.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm not sure I respect the artists that have come recently. I don't know that that's always my genre of what's happening, you know. I'm glad that we have gone past Up With People, fine organization, but that they had a half a dozen shots at it at halftime. I don't know that you can ever have a bad halftime if the Grambling band is there, right? Like they were in the very first one. And they've been into a bunch of them, right? There's a lot of them. And I think, they had some of the HBCU bands pregame this time down in New Orleans. But after that, yeah, I kind of, don't you feel like this has become a more like, there's been 59 Super Bowls. This is more like a last 30 kind of category.
Yeah, probably. My first one starts in 1993. That was the first one that I remembered happening was Michael Jackson in 93.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that was boom. Once he started, I think 93 is probably where so that's what, 32 years. I think 93 is where you go, this is when the modern day halftime Super Bowl extravaganza kind of became a thing.
I just watched that whole thing back. That was almost 20 minutes long. I don't know how long they are now, but that seemed really long. He stood there for like 5 minutes in the beginning.
I think he did 13 minutes. I timed it. It went to break at 7:17, and he went on 7 or 8 minutes after, and then he went 13. So it's about 25 minutes. It's basically double what they usually get all the time.
Right. And
all right. So Michael Jackson. I can live with Michael. I think, like you said, he's sort of a seminal moment.
Yeah, I have that at number 2, though. I'll get back to that. All right. 2004 is my number 5. Janet Jackson, Kid Rock, Nelly, Justin Timberlake, and a guy that we won't mention that happens to be famous for a particular wardrobe malfunction. That is not why it's on my list. I just thought it was a very good halftime show.
Okay. Am I going in order? Am I matching you, or are we listening to yours?
I think you should go now. You go number 5. We'll go back and forth.
All right. So number 5 was Diana Ross 2 years later. One, because she's Diana Ross, and 2, it's the last time they'll let fly anybody off in a helicopter. Or did she fly? Whatever. All I know is you can't take a helicopter anymore into a stadium crowded with people. Like, who okayed that? Anyway,
by the way, that was the real Diana Ross.
Thank you very much. As you know, I have a thing for Diana Ross and wanting to see her. It is different than the time I did see Diana Ross. Well played by you. Yeah, she comes in and there's a helicopter and you got Diana Ross. So the Motown songbird, hard to go wrong. That's at 5.
Number 4 for me, 2019 Maroon 5. I just really liked their music and I thought they were a really entertaining halftime show.
Okay, good. They're showing your contemporary adult chart favoritism. Good for you.
Thank you.
I went with the Timberlake and Janet Jackson thing at number 4 because if Michael Jackson kind of defined this is where we're going to change what the Super Bowl halftime is, the Timberlake, Janet Jackson brought attention to it. So now that everybody watches it all the time, right? It's kind of like, I don't know what the first great Super Bowl commercial was, but now you had this seminal moment and now people are focused on who's this, they want to know. That's why they announce it months in advance now. And that's because I think that brought so much scrutiny on Timberlake and Janet Jackson and her nipple. That now that's why people really are intently focused on it. So they're at 4.
There was a star over it, by the way. I have a mental image that's never going to leave. I'm just saying. Do you think that was on purpose?
I don't care. Yeah. And I'm not mad at it.
No, that's fair. Number 3, the Kings of Rock and Pop 2001, the year I graduated high school. Aerosmith, NSYNC, Britney Spears, Mary J. Blige, and Nelly. I think Nelly's made at least 2 or 3 appearances. That was a really good one. I loved how Aerosmith and the pop sensation of that era came together. That's not on yours, is it?
Aerosmith is not. But when you talk about old guys playing rock and roll, number 3, the Rolling Stones are.
Rolling Stones,
right?
Yeah.
They went through the NFL. This is another transition, right? They went through this period where it was like, we're going to take super popular artists that maybe are not, I don't want to say past their prime, but they are not currently in the they are names people know, they're somewhere between nostalgia and not, right? Like the Rolling Stones, they had U2, they talk about Aerosmith, right? Like they weren't in, those are 70s people, U2's more 80s. So they brought them along, everybody knew, because they knew their audience. Hey, everybody who's 40 and 50 is watching the Super Bowl, these are bands they'll remember, boom, we'll put them in. So I'm with the Rolling Stones right there.
Okay, I like it. 2 was Michael Jackson for me. I was a huge black.
I'll take Mick Jagger over Steven Tyler anytime in a fight,
Fair.
in anything.
Michael Jackson was my number 2. Black or White was my favorite song when I was a kid. I could sing you I won't, but I could.
Okay.
I love that halftime show. And then Heal the World to end it. I remember all those cards going up like yesterday. I can vividly tell you where I was in my house when that came on.
Number 2, I went with I wanted a straight showman, and Prince is a showman. And I'm not a huge Prince guy, but Prince was really good. And I kind of feel like Bruno Mars too, when he was there. Like, I just like dudes that are showmen, and those guys they pop, right? Electricity just comes off them. And so Prince was big when he came through. Like I said, even though I'm not a huge fan of his, he was really good.
Number 1, 2022, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, 50 Cent. For every millennial out there, that will be very tough to beat. That was the highlight of Super Bowl halftime shows. Yeah,
You're
I
not
am.
a millennial?
Yes, I am.
Are
82
you?
to 2000. I was born in 83. I'm on the oldest side of being a millennial.
All right. I thought maybe you barely got in.
Yeah.
Like you barely, the things that you have in common with somebody who was born in 2000 is 25 to me seems a little bit of a stretch.
I'll give you that. They call us Zennials or Xennials too, where we were the youngest Xers and the oldest millennials, the last generation that grow up without technology, and the first generation to have it.
If you tell me you like all those people, you're really trying hard to catch up. I don't feel like they're in your wheelhouse.
The Eminem and Dr. Dre and Snoop. Oh, that is my wheelhouse. That is my wheelhouse.
Because you grew up on the hard scrabble streets of Wisconsin? Of Green Bay?
Come on, man.
West Side, that's me. Like, what are you talking about?
That was literally the music of my high school years. Who's your number 1?
These are your people. Mine is the easiest one in the world. Me and Pat Murphy are in perfect agreement on this. It's
Bruce Springsteen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not even close. I was thinking I should make him first and second and then have a 3 through 6.
Honorable mention at number 1 and 2.
Yeah, I'm just saying he'd fill up both spots. He might take the whole podium, which again, that shows my age. That's fine. Baby, I was born to run. That's what you need to know. And I'm not on 8 Mile or whatever else. Just whatever road you want to have. Thunder Road is where I'm at.
Got it. And you heard it here first. I think they're going to go country next year. I don't know who. I don't know how many. But they haven't done country since 1994.
So that was between Michael Jackson and Diana Ross. I'm trying to think who was big back then. Do you know? Do you have that? Yeah. Like,
it was Travis Tritt. It was Lori Morgan, I think. I just think country is so big and it sells out so many arenas across the country. And there is country that spews over now onto
won record of the year.
Right.
Beyonce just won album of the year. Excuse me.
Her country album. Yeah. I think it's going to go country. We'll see. All right, back to Wilde. We're back the Inside Wisconsin show. Trevor, J.A., Jason Wilde, 30 years on the beat as the Packers. That Favre story, you can't get enough of that stuff. I can't get enough of that stuff. But I always think about this. I talked to John. I know that you're the same way. You're a Wisconsin boy. So how have you delineated the fandom side of who you are and how you grew up versus now the job?
Yeah, that is a struggle to explain, and I don't want to force people to have to listen to me do that because they're never going to understand it. I don't think I can give people an explanation because for them, their fandom never leaves them, right? And for me, I will give you this example, and I'm not going to put anybody's business on the street, but I have a really good friend, Judd Zolgad, who has been in the Minneapolis, St. Paul media for 30 years. And then I have another good friend, Rob Vogel, who grew up in the Twin Cities, who was on TV in Madison for a long time. And I once watched at dinner, both those guys stood up in my wedding, but I once watched at dinner as Judd told all these stories of like Rob's heroes from growing up, and told all these kind of stories that clearly demystified them and actually showed that some of them were bad guys. And I thought Rob was going to cry at dinner. And I don't ever want to do that to other people, but I do know, because of the time I spend around guys, I do know that most of our heroes don't live up to what our ideal images of them are. Now, I am fortunate in that the one guy that I worshipped growing up was Robin Yount. And by all accounts, from both people that have spent a lot more time with him and my own interactions with him, which are like the fact that I have his phone number in my phone, that is one of the few things where I'm like, oh my God, eight-year-old Jason Wilde would never believe that he would have Robin Yount's phone number. But it just comes out of you. It's not a immediate boom, it's over. It's more of a gradual process. But again, it's hard for me to explain to people. I just don't care. Like the Packers playing the Eagles, I don't care if they win or lose. And I have two people in my house, or three if you count Paula. But the girls, they want the season to end. I have somewhere in here, when the Packers played in the NFC Championship game in 2016 in Atlanta, the girls made paper airplanes. That was when I was still traveling with the team. So they made these paper airplanes. Their spelling of airlines is less than ideal. But on the inside, it says no pack no instead of go pack go. They want the season to be over, so they have their dad back. And so it's just my happiness is not connected to a team's success or failure. And I get that people don't understand that. I don't expect them to understand it. But all I can tell you is it's not fake. Like Tausch always says, you're a fan, you just won't admit it. It's just not. It doesn't matter to me. And it doesn't matter whether it's the University of Oregon, which is more of like a home away from home for me because of the people that are there, or the University of Wisconsin, which I am proud to be an alumnus of. But it just doesn't, that's just not how I'm wired anymore. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to accurately describe how or why it happened. I just want people to accept the fact that I'm not lying to them.
I always tell people you go from wanting, no fan wants the best team to win. They want their team to win. And you know you've made that thing when you're just like, I just need somebody to win. I'd like to do it in a timely manner because I have a deadline. And then you're like, okay, now I'm divorced sort of from the process of what's happening when it comes to.
Now, in fairness, I would say that there are people that I become a fan of that I want to see succeed, right? Like,
Totally.
I love Dick Bennett and Tony Bennett. Like, they've been great to me. I think the world of both of them. Like, when Tony went from his team being the first number one seed to lose to a 16 to winning the national championship, that was a game that I watched hoping that they would win. That is just so few and far between for me, though, and it's more people-driven than organization or school-driven.
So away from that, then I have two things I want to cover with Jason Wilde, the fan, which is one, I have you 10 years old when the Brewers in the World Series. Give me your World Series memories from '82, because I feel like there's never a better time to be a sports fan than when you're 10.
Yeah, there's a few ways to describe me, but one of the things that I think I'm probably too much of to a fault is nostalgic. I got this hat at Goodwill, and I liked how it looked, and I haven't showered yet today because I worked out before Wilde and Tausch, so I had to wear a hat. But again, the Brewers' outcomes don't really matter much to me. But that was a time where they were everything to me. Like, I had their batting averages memorized, right? Like, Molitor batting first, Yount batting second, like, Gorman Thomas hitting cleanup, like all that stuff was Cecil Cooper batting third, Thomas fourth, Ben Ogilvy fifth. I got to go to a World Series game. I got to go to an ALCS game. Like those, that is my team more than any other team. And I watched just a bit outside, and of course I cried. I'm eager for them to get distribution for that movie because I would like to watch it on a much more regular basis. But I'll tell you the story, and again, I don't want to turn this into a therapy session for me, but I when I was 10 and the Brewers lost those first 3 games at Baltimore and then one game, the 4th game of that series to win the AL East pennant. And for younger viewers, back then, there was no wild card. It was the AL East and the AL West champions then played each other in the ALCS, and then they played in the World Series. So Don Sutton was the pitcher that day. Robin Yount, my childhood hero, hit 2 home runs. Brewers beat the Orioles, and they advanced to the ALCS. My dad decides we're going to go to General Mitchell International Airport, and with his 10-year-old in tow, are going to go, welcome the team back. And back then, very different than now. I don't know if they flew like commercial or how it worked, but they went through the concourse. And so I'm there, and the plane is deplaned, and it was late at night, so there were not nearly as many people as you would have expected for a team that had just made the playoffs. And so I remember them walking out of the, they're all in varying degrees of their suits, but not particularly well kempt, if I recall correctly, for some of them, especially Vukovic and Thomas. And unlike now, where obviously my personality has developed over the years, I was a shy kid, right? I mean, these are my childhood heroes. They're walking toward me on the concourse, and I was nervous. And I hold in my heart Don Sutton, who died a few years ago, in such a special place, because here's a guy who is a Hall of Famer, and he sees this dad being pretty aggressive with his 10-year-old to get his act together and go get his autographs on his little baseball. And it had the makings of being probably one of the worst moments of my life. And Don Sutton comes up and he puts his arm around me and he says, I want you to meet some of the guys. What's your name? And so I introduced, I very nervously, I was JJ back then, by the way. I don't go by that anymore. And he takes me with his arm around me with my ball, and he is stopping guys in the concourse and introducing me to them and having them sign my baseball. I have the ball in my little shrine to Robin Yount that I have in the basement. And, Euchre and all these guys stop and they talk to me for a few minutes. And it's all because Don Sutton recognized a pretty difficult spot for a 10-year-old to be in and completely changed that whole moment for me. And it's one of my favorite moments of my life. And that team means so much to me that, the great moments in my career have been moments where I either got to cover that type of a team or that type of moment where I was thinking about the 10-year-olds that were reading my story or listening to me talk about the team, or being around guys that I viewed that way and getting to, sit down at spring training in 1998 with Robin Yount and spend an hour talking baseball with him. Like, those are the moments where, even though I'm pretty grateful for the career and life that I have, those are the moments that I get to say, I am incredibly blessed to get to do what I do.
So you're right at home in this show, right? As much as people love the Packers, Trev and I are like, I don't need another Super Bowl in life. What I need is a World Series championship. That's like literally, this is a Brewer show at its heart. The pulse of this thing is literally a Brewer show, which most people don't know. And it's funny, the first baseball glove I had to buy by myself, that I had to use my own hard-earned money, that little birthday money and a little lawn mowing money, was a Don Sutton autograph, who at the time he was the Dodgers Don Sutton. But that I look at now, that I have that today and I look at it, I think that's the Brewers Don Sutton who started that game. Right? He's completely transformed, what that little autograph burned into the glove means to me. So that is really, it is amazing. And my dad and I used to always go to the brewery, and that was my birthday present, was instead of Sports Illustrated subscription, which, by the way, when I finally canceled it because the magazine's gone downhill, broke my heart. Like, I can't believe I'm not going to get SI. So the other thing I have, you are an older person now, and if I have the things right, you got to see the Badgers go from Alvarez 1-10 to a Rose Bowl. What was living through that like in college?
So Barry Alvarez's first year, this is me at the Rose Bowl. I think the perm is what really does it, along with the acid-washed light jeans and the dark denim dress shirt with a tie.
So you both had made it at that point.
Yeah, that's whew, yeah. The girls, I don't know if the girls have ever seen that photo, and there's a good reason for it because they would never let me live it down. So Barry Alvarez's first year at the University of Wisconsin was 1990. They went 1-10. They beat Ball State, and I had grown up. That's the other thing that I had grown up doing was, since I got this Bucky Badger, I got this in my office too here. This may fall apart as I try to move it, but this was my first Bucky Badger. I got it when I was 4 years old from my neighbor who had gone to Wisconsin. And I always wanted to go to Wisconsin. I wanted to be a Badger. And so I'm a freshman in 1990, and I'm sitting in the student section. And if you know, I don't know, most people obviously are Wisconsinites that are watching, but you know, the student section is a raucous place where they, at least back in the 90s, would throw cups at each other during the course of the game to entertain themselves and shout between O and P, profanities. And then I was especially irritated with the rowing thing where some stranger was grabbing you in the back and pulling you and you were rowing in the student section. And I vowed from that moment on, I am never sitting in the student section after this. I am covering these games. And I would not say that I had lost my fandom at that point when the Badgers went to the Rose Bowl my senior year. But it was, when I look back on that, and Alvarez, you know, he and I have a really good relationship. He used to mercilessly make fun of me because I had an earring. And he still brings that up to this day when he's on the show, that Wilde had an earring. And I think even my column logo early in my State Journal career had me with the earring. So that's
100%.
Yeah, it was a good look. So that was to see what that athletic department became, and to see how transformative, like, you know, we all have whatever our lifespans are, right? And there are moments in, no matter when, whether you were born in 1900 or 1972 or 2002 or whatever, you look and go, oh my God, it was so cool to be alive for this, right? Like, I'm sure the generation before me is for when they walked on the moon. For me, from a sports perspective, unfortunately, the Brewers lose Game 7 of the World Series, but pretty cool to be a kid at that time, and pretty cool to be a college student when Barry Alvarez changes. I mean, I just heard that clip again today where he says, you better get your season tickets now because before long, you're not going to be able to get them. I mean, I remember Rick Tellender being on campus, you know, a great sports writer in his own right, doing this book, which was going to be how this great athletic program had fallen on such hard times. And the book's title is From Red Ink to Roses, which I suppose I could order along with my Chichi Rodriguez, John Anderson book on Amazon. That they to completely transform that athletic program. You know, the other thing that I got to do during my senior year, the Badger men's basketball team went to the NCAA tournament for the first time since like 1947. And Tracy Webster, the point guard, became a good buddy of mine. And him and Michael Finley and those guys, like, to see them do something with Stu Jackson as the head coach when they were a dead basketball program. And then you see where it goes from Stu to Stan Van Gundy to Coach Bennett. And to see Wisconsin in a Final Four in 2000 was something I would have never imagined. So I've gotten my lifespan has covered some pretty amazing moments. not the Lombardi era, but some pretty amazing moments in sports in Wisconsin.
So much of it has to do with your personal story too, Jason. I can't help but hear that. There's a significant crossover between whether it was how you were raised or your childhood stories here in Wisconsin to how you cover it and how you've covered it, I guess, for the last 30 years. Does that come out on purpose? Does it come out on accident? I mean, I listen to every Packers press conference there is. You're long-winded, but that's because you write the way you do. So what is the bridge there?
So I do take a lot of grief for that.
Yeah.
And Matt LaFleur has now gone to a new technique where he interrupts me about halfway through.
Don't be late, by the way. Holy hell, was that?
If he could have, for those that didn't see this, again, I'm not interested in being the story, right? Like, I am a storyteller. I love telling people stories. It is the best part of what I get to do. And I've gotten to tell so many different people's stories, and I love that responsibility and the joy that it brings, not only the people who read it and the people that the stories are about, but the guy that writes it. That said, when I ask my long-winded questions, I have a goal for those. It's not just I like the sound of my own voice. I'm looking to really make it more conversational, to lead to good answers, because in the end, the question doesn't matter. What matters is the answer. But that LaFleur thing, I do not want to draw attention to myself. And I had a couple of incidents this season, including when Rich Bisaccia, who is supposed to start at 3:05, started at 3:03, and I didn't walk in until 3:04. And so he decided to make a spectacle of me coming in late. He clapped and thank you for joining us. But the LaFleur thing, so I walk in a minute late, and he had told Jason Wilde, their PR director, if anybody comes in late, because he wanted to start early that day, is the backstory. And Waller said, hey, look, these guys, you know how these guys are. They don't walk in until right before you start. So you got to wait till 3:15 or whatever time he was talking. And he said, okay, but if anybody comes in late, I'm going to light them up. And then it turns out to be me, which I'm never, like, I'm always cutting it tight, but I have never been late. And that one day, and he tore into me. And what was so disappointing was that he was doing it to give me a hard time, but he didn't hold it just long enough, because he said at the end of it, he says, get your butt out of here. It's like in a meeting. If you're late, get out of here. And if he holds it another like 3 seconds, I'm standing up and I'm leaving. Then I'm thinking he means it. Because I thought the whole time, oh, he's just busting my balls, and that's fine. But if he would have held it another couple of seconds and not broke it and laughed and said, I'm just kidding, I would have gotten up. And then he would have totally owned me, and I would have never lived it down. So the fact that he didn't hold it that extra beat or two, I'm thankful for that, because I saw him in the locker room afterward. He's like, I had you going, didn't I? And I said, well, yeah, but you had to hold it because I was ready to get up. He's like, damn. Then he was disappointed that he didn't hold it longer.
I mean, timing is everything in comedy. Like that's the whole thing.
Right.
Come on, Matt. Let's go. For a Badger, you wear a lot of Oregon stuff. What is it with you and Eugene? What's that connection?
So my best friend, who was the best man in my wedding, came to work for the Packers when Packers.com was in its infancy, and that's how we met. And we hit it off right away. His name's Jason, too. His name's Jason Bellamy. And we found that we just had a lot in common. We played pickup basketball together, and he was from Eugene, Oregon. He went to school at Washington State, but his dad was the sports editor and columnist for the Eugene Register-Guard. So the first Packers offseason after he started with the Packers, he said, well, you should come out. You should go to a game at Mack Court and see the Ducks basketball team. And so this was in like 2001, 2002. So I did. I went out there with him and, met his family, and we became really, really close friends. So close that my parents, who were homophobic, thought we were a gay couple. And so there's a lot of things about me. I am always going to tell the truth, even when it's not especially flattering. so that would be our yearly thing. We would go out to Eugene, and so Paula, who is my wife of 15 years, although for her it feels like a lot longer, then started going on the trip with me and with his future wife and everything else, and she likes to call Eugene our second home, even though we never actually lived there. And it was because Jason's dad, Ron Bellamy, and his wife Kathy, who we call Coach, who ran in the Olympic trials. She's a big part of the running community in Eugene. They filled a void in our family that gave our girls a great grandpa and grandma that they didn't have, and really were vital for them, but also for Paula and I to have that kind of type of people around us. And so we have not, with the girls' schedules now as they've gotten older, we haven't been out there for several years. It's one of my regrets, but that, when you see me wearing Ducks gear, it's not so much whether I care about whether Dan Lanning's team wins the national championship. It's more about, it's a state of mind, and it's a place that is near and dear to me. It also helps when Evan Williams comes into the locker room. We haven't had a lot of Ducks, and so he's certainly appreciated that. Not as much maybe as Jeff Hafley with my Boston College hoodie, but it has spurred some conversations with Evan that I've really enjoyed. So there's no ulterior motives, but there are some bonuses from time to time.
That's all. All right, we will wrap it up. Jason Wilde, back in a second. The Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Amplify Health, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Legit Pizza, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Cheese plate, J.A. Let's talk about cheese plates. So I go to Festival Foods, and there's like a cheese aisle, which I love, shredded cheese and block cheese, but they have this gourmet cheese section, right? Where it's like the aged cheddar or the Merlot or all these other things. And I'm curious, do you have like a go-to fancy cheese that you would put out?
No, not to like a nice Manchego or something. When
Yeah,
I honestly, there are times that the cheddar can get a little too sharp for me, so I don't know that I want the extra. No, here's what I'll tell you, especially during like football season and when the end comes, dude, I will take, you can have every gourmet cheese you want. I will still eat the squeezed cheese out of the can too. Like, I am not afraid. Give me a cracker, give me my index finger, and I sent a picture of that out to somebody, and they're like, please rescue this man so he has better cheese. I'm like, no, I need no rescuing. This is where I'm at right now. Sometimes I'm like, I am all right in my trashiness. Totally down with that. I like those. I love that. But like, I'm not you set out brie and it looks nice, right? But then it just kind of melts and nobody does. Like, give the people what they want, said Jalen Rose.
Play the hits.
And so,
Fresh
play the hits. So, ooh, look, I got this fancy stuff, and I got 4 grapes and some, mustard. Just give me a piece of cheese to eat, And then if
when you send me,
I'm really feeling bad, you want to put it in a can, I'll eat it that way too.
When you send me funny text messages, by the way, I always respond. I sent you one the other day from Festival with a port wine cheese in my hand and said 1 serving. No response.
Did I
don't know
anything
what
back?
Nothing. I thought it was really good too. I was like, all right, well, swing and a miss.
That is for you. That's a single serving can. I can understand that. Yeah. I'm
Big
not the
fan.
port guy. I like it plain, but I get where, listen, that takes all kinds, but I apologize that I didn't do that. I must have been really busy ignoring you. And I apologize.
I am unavailable for comment. Got it. I've been there before. Understood. Whether it is specialty cheeses or all the different cheeses in the cheese aisle at Festival Foods, they have you covered for whatever it is that you need cheese for. Shop Festival Foods, festfoods.com. And we're back to wrap it up with Jason Wilde, Trevor, and John on the Inside Wisconsin Show. 2 from me, and one of them's a little hallmarky, so I'm going to start with this, and then I'll get to my last one before this. How's your wife, Paula, doing? For those that don't know, she battled quite a bit of breast cancer there for a little bit. How's she doing, man?
Yeah, so it was interesting watching the Super Bowl and the ad about early detection, because we are still incredibly grateful for someone who read her regularly scheduled mammogram in 2020 and could have easily chalked up what they saw to scar tissue or just it just doesn't look quite right. But we're sure it's fine. You're 41 years old. Instead, they were insistent. And so, when people were asking me, Tausch and I were talking about your favorite commercials from the Super Bowl, it was the Nike Women in Sports one. It was the NFL, which I know is trying to look for revenue streams by getting women more involved in their game with flag football. And it was the breast cancer one, which I thought was brilliant, by the way, because I don't want to speak for anybody else on the panel, but some of us have probably been caught looking from time to time and say, hey, my eyes are up here. So I thought that was extremely well executed. But the message behind it, Paula will tell you, she's done a few interviews over there. She is not forward facing like I am publicly, but she's gone out of her comfort zone because it's so important to her. Early detection is the difference between her being here and not. I will say this: Paula and the girls went to Florida for a week without me. It was just me and the cats and the dogs and the hamsters and the fish. But Florida, her joints feel a lot different because some of the preventative cancer drugs are harsh, and it's not easy to live in Wisconsin to begin with. But she was diagnosed at such a young age; she has to stay on these drugs, so that's a challenge for her. She puts up with a lot physically and with obviously me. So we're really lucky. She's doing great, and I never like this. I always hate the phrase of. I like that you said battled, because you never beat it, because you never know, and you don't lose to it either. I always hate that when I see obits that say so and so lost their battle with cancer. It's an insidious disease. It's touched all of us, and I really hope that the if we continue to study things in our country in medical realm, we can get some answers to prevent it more effectively.
Yeah, good. We're glad to know she's doing well. Last one for me. How many years ago did you move to Green Bay, and what is it like being a Packers beat reporter living in the community?
Well, it's going to be difficult when the draft is here because, it's going to really inconvenience my commute. And I'll never get over to Southwest High School and see the John Anderson statue. But look, I love living here. Are there some aspects of it where I would like us to be a little more open-minded or enlightened? There are some folks that I do wonder about, but I love it here. For the first half of my career, I had an apartment in Madison that overlooked Lake Mendota that didn't have air conditioning because I was a cheapskate. And then I had an apartment here by the stadium that the State Journal paid for. So I had two of everything, like two TV. Like I was like a divorced child, but it was by my own volition. And so I moved here full time. We bought a house in 2007, and I will just say this because I love Ryan Longwell. We have a great relationship. I would say we're friends. He took a lot of grief on his way out of town to join the Vikings by saying that Applebee's was the best restaurant in town. He wasn't wrong.
Come on.
But it's gotten a lot better since then.
Jeez.
You're not going to the right spots.
No.
Now, in fairness, it changed a lot after that. Do I have time for a very quick story? So
yeah. It's the internet. You can keep going.
So the Packers fire Ray Rhodes after the season finale in '99, and Tom Silverstein of the Journal Sentinel and I have to get something to eat after we file our story. So we go to the Perkins on Oneida Street, because Sunday night at 10 o'clock, you're limited in your options. And on a date, sitting across from us, is Darren Sharper, which, again, this story was a lot different at one time than it's later. But Spoon's phone and my phone light up at the exact same time because I think Chris Mortensen was the one who broke it that night that Rhodes had been fired. And so we immediately have to get to work, and we got quotes from Darren Sharper, And then Spoon calls Leroy Butler, who then asks why Sharper is at a Perkins on Sunday night. And when Spoon informs him that he's out on a date, Butler says, "Hey, give your phone to Sharper." And he begins admonishing him for taking someone on a date to Perkins. So that's what the restaurant life was like in January of 2000. So I know you're very protective of your hometown. Now we've got a lot of great restaurants. I love it here. But there was a time where, and it was especially difficult as a single guy in his 20s covering the team. It was hard we've got a lot more young professionals now. I think it's easier for young 20-somethings to meet their future wife or husband. But your town was a challenge when I was in my youth. I'm not going to lie.
There's a lot of stuff to unpack there.
I guess I'll have to come back eventually.
Okay.
I will say this, though. You've never checked out the single scene at Al's Hamburgers down there in Washington. That place is where that place is usually hopping.
Hamburgers were good. I know that.
Yeah, they are.
Place. By the way, I'm gonna read a note from the great Stuart Scott when he got the Arthur Ashe Courage Award when he was facing cancer, and he said, "When you die, that does not mean that you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and the manner in which you live." God bless his soul, Stuart, who's now been gone more than 10 years. So that's incredible. Which makes it seem like this is really dumb that we now go into, hey, here's a bunch of nonsensical questions. But we will transition clumsily as it is and move forward. Okay. These are as quick. I say they're quick. Take whatever time you want. But first, do you know what Red Smith's first name is?
I don't.
Yeah, he was Walter Smith. He didn't like it, so that's why he bestowed Red by himself. No one ever gave him the nickname.
Can you do that? Is that even legal? I mean, I guess if you're Red Smith, you can.
I was going to say, are you going to argue with Red Smith? No, I think you can. In certain instances, you can. What was your first byline?
The Badger Herald, 1991, spring of 1991. Barry Alvarez took spring practice to, I think, Glendale Nicolay High School. And I wrote on an actual typewriter and then had to bring it back to the Badger Herald on Sunday so they could get it typed into the system and printed up.
That's fantastic. What do you get when you are named Wisconsin Sports Writer of the Year? Anything? Got a plaque or?
Yeah, I have 3 locations where I have all the stuff that Paula doesn't want around the house. One of them is the studio, one is the office at Lambeau, and one is a spare bedroom, small section. I have a plaque, and then they went to a trophy in 2017 when I won my last one. I should rejoin that group so I can be eligible again.
Give me a Packer player who was just a good quote. You knew you could go, and that guy would say something, and I could put it in the paper in a desperate time. On
the current team, my go-to guy is Xavier McKinney. All-time, my guy is Dorsey Levens or, believe it or not, Mark Tausch.
I was going to ask, okay, tell me what something you know about Tauscher now, having worked with him in this capacity, that you didn't know when he was an actual player.
Nothing. Look, when he was a player, and I always tell this story because it's one of the few things I brag about, Craig Karmazin and Evan Cohen came to me in 2015 and said, we want to revamp the lineup. We're going to give you whoever you want as a co-host. Who would you pick? And I said Mark Tauscher. He was a great quote then. When he came back after his second ACL and they didn't sign him right away, he avoided the media, and that was a loss for us and for fans. Mm-hmm. He would not come out very often. He is, I use this term meaning it, he is a genius. He's also difficult at times, but that's also true of geniuses.
Right. That's what makes them so special. Give me, because a lot of times I talk, you're in a gym somewhere. So I want to know Maddie or Sid's career high in basketball.
I think Sid had 8 assists in her last game, which is what I measure her effectiveness on.
Sure.
But we're coming to the end of her 8th grade season. She's got 2 tournaments left. I've been an assistant coaching her since 3rd grade. I am not ready for this transition to where I'll never get to coach her again. Maddie does all the things that I can't coach. She was a terrific ballerina. She runs cross country, which clearly I'm not doing a whole lot of running. And she's a pole vaulter, and I don't have that kind of body control. So she's never had to worry about me coaching her.
Okay, very good. I was going to ask your greatest athletic accomplishment. We're going to move right by that one.
Well, the 291, I had a chance for a 300, and I choked on the last ball, and I got one pin.
Oh, take our boy Wilde in the clutch. Kiss, Mary, Kill. You're familiar with this? Kiss, Mary, Kill. Domofsky, Doherty, and Wes Hoskowitz.
I'm going to marry Wes. The other two I'm going to give a big hug to.
But you're not going to kill either one of them.
Nope.
All right, very good.
Or kiss him for that matter.
There's someone that covered the team for a long time that is not who he seemed to be, that I would definitely pick that on, but I'm not going to say who he was.
Very good. Okay, since you went to Martin Luther High, true or false? Luther married a nun.
I must have missed that day at school. I don't know.
He did. In 1525, they had 6 kids. She had left. The convent by then.
6 kids and 31 theses, or whatever it was. Yeah.
I think it was 95, but we're close. Hayward Field or Lambeau Field?
Hayward Field, the old Hayward Field.
Love the old Hayward Field. Does Trevor know who Pre is?
No.
Trevor?
Steve Prefontaine, baby. You got to see Without Limits. You got to watch that movie.
You act like you're surprised, Jay. Let's be real. No, I don't know who.
There's 2 Pre movies. Watch Without Limits. That's the one that was written by Kenny Moore, his teammate. It's the better of the 2. The other one is aptly named Pre. Best Packer who was a Duck.
Josh Bidwell.
I had him down here. I thought maybe Evan Williams in year 1 might have already surpassed him, but maybe not yet.
He's on his way. We have not had enough Ducks.
Do you know who Leland Glass is?
No, I don't. Should I?
So Leland Glass was a Duck, and Dan Faust was the quarterback. Bobby Moore, Ahmad Rashad was the running back. Leland Glass was the cool player on that, the wide receiver on that team, and he was a Packer for 2 seasons. Rode my bike to practice. There you go.
That's what he's really known for.
I'm just saying. Next year, Devontae Adams, yes or no?
I sure hope so. He's my Leland Glass. I need him back.
Okay. Myles Garrett, Packer, yes or no?
No.
Got it. How many bobbleheads do you have total? Is there a count on this thing?
There is not a count. Probably around 75 or 80. I just got Bobby Knight throwing a chair.
Nice.
Which I found at a Goodwill, but I'm going to flip it because it's going for like $150 on eBay, and I don't like Bobby Knight.
Nice. My mom hated him until she got to meet him, and then she changed her tune on Bob entirely. Last one, since you've covered the Badgers and know that. Where would you put Joe Thomas in your rank of all-time great Badgers? Trevor had him 47th.
40? Wait a minute. You did a list that got to 47th?
No.
Well, that's just where Trevor had him. No, it was supposed to be a top 5, and Trevor had him.
We did a top 5, and I put him at 5, which is apparently the wrongest answer I've ever had in my entire life.
Who did you have ahead of him?
4 other guys, including Darrell Bevel was my number 1, but that came from my childhood.
That was a hell of a run in the Rose Bowl. Again, and I had a hell of a perm. I will say this. I would say he's probably 3 in my list. The guy that deserves to be on that list of at least the top 5, and a guy that I got to know as a student. We lived in the same dorm, and I find to be one of the great tragedies of my time covering Wisconsin sports is Brent Moss. I know this is supposed to be the lightning round, but I was driving back to Madison newspapers after covering the Wisconsin women's soccer team losing its NCAA tournament game to Washington State for the Capital Times. And I'm turning onto Fish Hatchery Road, and there is a police car with a car stopped on the side, and the person has got his hands on the hood, and he's being arrested. I drove by Brent Moss being arrested with drugs. I remember when he tried out for the Packers and was trying to revitalize his career. he is one of those guys that I will always ask, what if? Because, man, was he a tough hombre as a running back. I would have, if he had had the support community around him to become the kind of player he might have been and avoided the trouble that he found, I would have loved to have seen what his career would have been like. And it makes me sad when I think about him.
And a foundational player for Alvarez. And as I hear the story, he's one of those guys that they had different people that I know in and around the program, and certainly not as intimately as you. But there were some changes in the football program and how they were able to do business under Chancellor Shalala that they did not have before that. That I don't know that Don Morton was a great coach one way or another, but he faced challenges that some of those obstacles they removed that helped Barry Alvarez establish the program. So,
yep.
I'm out other than to say, hey, happy early birthday. So we're just the day after Valentine's Day. That is tough, right? You make a big deal about Paula, and then she's got to turn right around and like, here, listen, at midnight we're out, and now it's the day of me.
That is not how it works around here. All right. I do have a question for Trevor before I go.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, a college professor sends you a hoodie of the school at which he teaches, and he thoughtfully and respectfully and kindly underestimates how overweight you are and sends you a large instead of an extra large. What is the proper way to deal with that situation with a gift that you received that you were very excited to wear, in fact, hoping to wear today, but when I tried it on, it clearly was not going to, I mean, I guess it's a skinny enough screen where I could have gotten away with it, but
I have an unbelievable answer for this question. Are you ready?
Yes.
You wear it as an undershirt because it's too tight.
There it is. Yours is like a triple XL, dude. They don't even have your
It was
size.
a double. And I don't know how big you people are down there, but it ain't how we grow them here.
4X. Golly, here I was trying to be a nice guy. I was trying, and I thought, well, I've overestimated for you, Trevor. Here's a double XL. That'll be fine.
I think the best. I
thought you had it great. Send it back. We'll do that. We do returns here.
No, I'm going to lose some weight. I'm just going to lose some weight.
I just think the question is, what's the nicest thing to do? And I would say send a shirt that's too small because it sends the message that you think, hey, I'm in good shape.
It's all about love.
It was both an inconvenience and an ego boost that John Anderson thought that. So I appreciated it.
Like I said, just let me know when you do the Where Are They Now Jamon Moore piece that I can share that with people here. That's
Jason.
For all the R&D, can I just say this? For all the scouting, all the R&D, I'm like, I know these. Just call me and say, what do you think of Jamon Moore? And I'm like, he's unbelievable, except for the part where he can't catch. Other than that, he's unbelievable.
Well, some might argue he would have fit right in this season.
Too soon.
These are oh, Lord.
Dontavian Wicks does not agree. Hey, I get to wear journalism stuff. John teaches journalism. You're a journalist. I'm a fan, man. And I'm a fan of you, and I'm a fan of your work, and I'm grateful that you joined us to tell your story. Thank you.
Dude, you guys, anytime. I know I'm still 5 visits behind Wes Hodkowitz, but I appreciate you having me.
The Hoskowitz visits are getting to be like where Joe Thomas is in the thing. It just keeps expanding. Joe is 50th, now 47th. Hoskowitz has been on like twice, once for about 4 minutes, and now you'd think he's a co-host.
We're done.
We want you to do a whole lot more than just save money. We want your money to grow, just like your dreams. We want you to achieve financial well-being and the feelings that go along with that. Capital Credit Union, doing the right thing.
J.A., that's what this show is all about. We didn't talk much about any player that he covered in particular or significant Packer stories outside of Wilde, right? That we wanted to know Wilde's story, and that was Wilde's story. That was awesome.
The subject of the program is Jason Wilde, not what Jason Wilde knows about the Green Bay Packers. So hopefully folks are not disappointed. I don't know how you could be. What I think is great here is, and this is a buddy of mine, Wright Thompson, fabulous writer, and he gets unbelievable access, and because he again talks about relationships. But he said, right now the way it is, society just kind of hates reporters. And you kind of have to show that you're a person, and your job is being a reporter, as opposed to I'm a person and my job is to dig a hole in the ground. My position is a person. I'm a person, and my position is to be a waiter or waitress, a server at Perkins. And I think there's been so much heat and there's some negativity around. Like, look, that's a person, and that's a really, really good person. And his job is, and so if we could make our audience know all the time, like there are people and, families and feelings and all those other things that cover him. And he's just a great example of, that's beyond the byline, beyond the guy who's on all the time with Wilde and Tausch, really good, really interesting person who's seen a lot of amazing things.
We don't want to know what these people do or how they do it. We all know that. It's who they are and how they either help shape us or how we help shape them. So
there's the story. Yep.
A major part of our show is who you are and what your childhood was. This is another edition of John, Wisconsin. What's up?
So this is really hard. I texted you earlier today. It's like, do we have a top 5? Because my thought was, I'll tell you sort of my top 5 sports writers that I really like.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I have it down to 53.
Oh my God. Okay. That's not a top 5 list.
No. So I'm going to read my 53 names.
Okay. 53 names. Here, I'll give you the full screen. You do it.
Yeah. 53. And I don't know. So I don't even begin. So I started with the top 5, and I put Dan Jenkins, who's the preeminent golf writer in America, Golf Digest, but started Sports Illustrated. But I thought, well, no, he's one of these great guys that came from this rich vein of writers down in Dallas. He started in Fort Worth. But then I think of the guys at the Dallas Morning News, which was amazing, which a wonderful man named David Stevens. Randy Galloway, who, as he says, I just like to throw hammers at people. The great Blackie Sherrod. 4 was Frank DeFord, who was one of the great magazine article writers and was a Sports Illustrated guy. And then I thought, well, Rick Riley, who I love, would be number 3.
Yeah.
But that would ignore guys like Gary Smith, who Jason touched on, or Steve Russian, who went to Marquette, needs to be on this program, or Rick Tellender, who we mentioned, Kenny Moore, who was also ran in the Olympics in the marathon, S.L. Price, Lee Montville, Steve Wolf, Mike Royko, who I totally read syndicated in the Chicago papers, but was in the Green Bay papers and made fun of Wisconsin relentlessly. He's amazing. But, Herb Gould is a really great writer down there for Chicago as well. And then there's the late, great Jim Murray, who might be the greatest columnist in the history of all-time sports writing. They always said one time, Jim Murray he had to MC a thing and he had to call out sick. And he said his regrets. And the person they got to fill in for him was Bob Hope. Like, that's how big Jim Murray was. Pulitzer Prize, writer, U.S. Sports Writer of the Year, 14 times, I think 12 in a row, went to the University of Hartford. But if I do that, Trev, I leave out the great Ralph Wiley, who once said, the great ones tell you what they saw, or good ones tell you what they saw, the great ones tell you what it means. Or Art Spander, who covered, I think until this year was the first year he missed the Rose Bowl in like 70 years. Ray Ratto, I sent you a clip of him. He's also a San Francisco guy. Shelley Smith, that's right. Sometimes I forget another person that worked at Sports Illustrated. Bernie Miklasz and Rick Hummel, who were amazing here at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Mike Lupica, the great Dick Hoops Weiss. Those guys were New York writers. Brian Burwell, Dick Schaap, father of Jeremy. Oh, look, another SI guy, Curry Kirkpatrick. Mitch Albom, Tuesdays with Maury, right? Very famous Detroit sports writer. Tom Boswell, maybe as good as they come. You think about Wilbon and you think about Kornheiser, who were excellent, but the lead columnist there at the Post forever was Tom Boswell. Sally Jenkins, Dan's daughter, and perhaps we might have a Jason and Sid Wilde. Jay McMullen, one of the great sports writers. Boston was thick with great sports writers. Peter Gammons. Howard Bryant's fantastic. When I was in Oklahoma, Bill Connors, Charlie Smith, Clay Henry, Owen Canfield, both of them. His dad wrote for the Hartford Courant. Doug Ferguson, AP writer in Oklahoma, and now probably the guy that knows and writes more about Tiger Woods than anybody. The great Steve Schoenfeld, who for a while was the head of the NFL Writers Association, tragically killed walking across the street in the prime of his life. Paula Boyven, she wrote there in Phoenix as well. Christine Brennan, you read her in the USA Today, and if anything you need to know about figure skating and what happened in the tragedy of the plane crash. Nobody knows the sport of figure skating like Christine Brennan. Oh, there's another Sports Illustrated guy, Grant Wall. Tim Kirkshin, Jason Stark, wonderful writers for ESPN. Both wrote, I think, for a time for Sports Illustrated. But if you need baseball, you go to those two guys. Furman Bisher. Nobody knows more about the Masters with the exception of maybe O.B. Keeler, who was, the personal biography of the great Bobby Jones. Wright Thompson, Pat Forty, Seth Wickersham, T.J. Quinn, all Missouri guys. So was Pete Doherty, who's now with the Press Gazette forever. Bob McGinn down in Milwaukee. You probably read him more than you need to know. Cliff Christo, who I read religiously as a kid growing up for the Press Gazette and now is the team's historian. We mentioned Pete Doherty. And finally, there's Red Smith. So I only had 53. I went through them fast because this is John, Wisconsin. But if you need to, go back, look at it again. And now with the interwebs, you can access those people, and you should go see those. Nobody was better than Ralph Wiley. Ralph Wiley would pick up his phone and just go, "Be good news." Like that was how he said hello to people. And
Jay, you're a hell of a writer too, man. Like you just
but not like
read.
These guys. I can write for 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Well, I was going to say, do you wish you would have done more writing in your career? Because you read on the air what you wrote, but rarely was it for reading purposes.
Some. I still struggle to write that long form piece, spelling, punctuation, AP style. Those are obstacles to all of that. I did write a book, took me forever, terrified me. No, I'm happy in the lane I am in. Once in a while I can stretch. I don't know that I could do it every day.
Sure.
But that's all those people used to read. And that's back when newspapers ruled the earth. And now they don't, but there's still really good writers out there. You just got to work a little harder to find where they are at. But it's a shame because as much sometimes people down on reporters that like you pick up the paper, you want those guys to chronicle what happened on Monday mornings after you've watched the Packers play. Or the Brewers. Wilde fits right in. Man, if the Brewers get to the World Series, we get you and I, we get Wilde in here. So like it's just gonna be a mess.
We're gonna carpool for sure.
Gonna be
all right. Our thanks to Jason Wilde for jumping on the show today. A heck of a story that he got to share with us. As always, we appreciate you liking and subscribing and sharing the content that you see that Inside Wisconsin produces here on the interwebs. For John, I'm Trevor. We will see you next time as you were, Wisconsin.
Shut up and sit down.